Jeffrey Wright, back at it again with a new episode of the Boy Time Podcast. As always, I'm joined by Babby.
Wow.
Wow. We have a fun and exciting episode planned, as always. It's no longer Halloween Marathon, so we're never going to talk about anything scary ever again
Ever.
until next October. And then we'll dust off that old tome, delve back into the dark depths of arcane knowledge, and really get to the bottom of the evil stuff. Um, yeah, I mean, that would tie in very well with a video that we just recorded. Um, I won't spoil what it is, even though everyone already knows, because the wheel was spun on Aaron West, I think,
I think so.
for Cemetery. Yeah. So, yeah. Uh, Stay tuned for that, I guess. I'm still working on the Soccer Mommy video, but that's fine. But enough about main channel stuff for now. Let's move on to the podcast. Um, I guess what I was getting at with Halloween Marathon being over is that I basically had no direction. Um, I was going to watch 400 Blows because I brought it up. I don't remember how I brought it up at the end of the last podcast, but the moral of the story is I brought it up last podcast and I was going to do it. And then I just was not in the right headspace. So I'm like, I don't even want to attempt watching it. It's one of those movies that's like kind of like widely regarded as a classic, maybe like one of the best movies of all time. And I was not, in the headspace to be diving into that. I feel like I have to maybe set aside a day or something and be like, today's the day I'm gonna watch 400 Blows. Um, but I think I was too ambitious because I had one day off this week, and I was like, I'm gonna watch two movies, and so I watched one movie, and then we recorded Cemetery. And then after that, I was like, I don't want to do anything ever for like 2 days. And I needed some time to recover. And so that's what happened. So 400 Blows. Sorry, not this week. I know everyone was highly anticipating that one. Very excited for my coverage of the 400 Blows. Unfortunately, that won't be happening this time. Instead, we're going to be talking about a movie that we already talked about on the podcast when it came out 2 years ago. But I decided to rewatch it because the show spinoff is out and I might start watching it. And of course, the movie is The Batman, the hit 2022 film directed, written by Matt Reeves. Um, yeah, I don't know what else there is to say about the Batman that hasn't already been said, but I'm going to give it a shot. I've been kind of doing a Batman deep dive this year, watching the Batman Caped Crusader show, the animated series. I watched the Dark Knight trilogy not too long ago, like in September or something. So I decided, hey, the new Penguin show is out, so I should rewatch the movie because just to get a refresher. And really, I didn't need to do that at all. I think I saw it once in theaters when it came out in January of 22, and I pretty much could tell you everything that happened in it, um, which I think is a good thing. It's a very memorable movie, and I think a large part of that is due to the cinematography and especially the performances. I think it's probably the best. Um, well, I don't know. We're treading into murky waters here because I don't want to use too many um, like superlatives saying that it's like the best Batman performance movie performance wise or anything like that. because we've gotten a lot of great performances out of Batman movies, especially from the Dark Knight trilogy that I covered not too long ago. But I think after I watched that trilogy and covered it on this show, I think I was really left with a really bad taste in my mouth after Dark Knight Rises, which honestly, as more time has passed, I've only grown more negative on it. I honestly think it might be like one of the worst comic book movies I've ever seen, which is saying a lot. I've seen a lot of them. I haven't seen like all of the like 80s and 90s Marvel movies, the pre MCU Marvel movies, like Elektra or the other Daredevil movie or like Howard the Duck, like those which are generally regarded to be pretty terrible, or like the Halle Berry Catwoman movie. Like I haven't seen any of those. Those are all regarded not very well. Um, so I haven't seen those, but Dark Knight Rises is absolutely terrible. Um, I don't know. I don't remember if I said anything positive about that movie when I talked about it, but I pretty much take everything back. I think it's handedly Christopher Nolan's worst movie, and it's just sloppy in all regards. And so, even though the first two movies are great, I don't even think I could say that the Dark Knight trilogy is a perfect trilogy because, man, that last movie's awful. So, I think I needed a refresher, a reminder on why I like Batman so much. And so, that's why I kind of wanted to rewatch the Batman. Um, Unlike other reviews that I do, I'm not really going to give a plot synopsis because um, it's pretty recent. Not to like avoid spoilers or anything, but I feel like most people have seen it or at least know what happens in it generally. Um, but what I want to talk about a little bit is how I think the Batman is the perfect Batman movie. While I think Dark Knight is probably the best like standalone movie. Like taking out the Batman aspects of it, I think Dark Knight is it's a perfect movie that just so happens to be about Batman and those characters. But I think the Batman is like the perfect Batman movie, if that makes sense. I don't know if it makes sense, but that's how I'm framing it in my head right now. Um, but I think what makes the Batman special, I think, is that it falls in a very like interesting place in the like timeline of Batman stuff. It kind of takes inspiration from, I'll say it, probably Spider-Man Homecoming. At least that's what comes to mind. Where I feel like every Batman movie before it, like, really was like, we need to show the origin story, right? Like most superhero movies. The first one, it's always like, we need to see the origin. But when it comes to something like Spider Man or Batman, like, literally everybody on the planet knows, like, oh, Batman is a billionaire orphan whose parents were murdered and he wants to get revenge, or he wants to like be a hero, a beacon of light in his parents' image to stop crime, to make sure that nobody um, falls the same fate that he did. Or with Spider-Man, it's like Uncle Ben died, and great power comes great responsibility. He's a Spider-Man. It's like, no, we don't need to see the origin again. That's why, like, there's been 3 MCU Spider-Man movies, and they barely talk about Uncle Ben because it's just like implied, which I actually like, because it's like, we don't need to see it. We've seen it twice with the Sam Raimi movies, and with Batman, we've seen it like 3 or 4 times. So we get it. We don't need to do that anymore. And especially since Batman Begins came out like not too long ago, like, we don't need another origin story for Batman. But what I think the Batman is, it's kind of interesting because it kind of lands, if this took place in the Nolan verse, it takes place in between Batman Begins and Dark Knight in terms of like Batman's chronology, I guess, where it isn't him, it's not an origin story. We're not seeing him figure everything out. Like, he has the suit, he has all the gadgets, he's been doing this for 2 years, but it isn't like Dark Knight where he's like really established. Like, he hasn't really figured out who he is yet. He's still kind of like naive, kind of emotional, and at least that's how it opens. You know, the opening narration where he's like, "I am vengeance," whatever. It isn't. He's not like a hero. He's a vigilante. He wants to beat people up. He wants to attack and assault criminals, because he has all this pent up trauma that he refuses to deal with in any sort of constructive way, and so he just punches people that he deems are breaking the law. Um, and so that's kind of where we start. And the Bruce Wayne that we see at the beginning of the movie is vastly different from the Bruce Wayne we see at the end, which, I mean, that's what you want. And that's more than you can say for most of the Nolan movies, especially the last two. Like I said, Dark Knight's a better movie, but Bruce Wayne slash Batman doesn't matter at all in that movie. He's just a vessel. Um, it's kind of weird. It's a crime thriller where the protagonist doesn't matter at all. Whereas something like I don't even know what's comparable to Dark Knight. It would have to be something like more grand. Um, I don't know. It almost no. I can't think of any good comparisons right now, but I have more comparisons to say about the Batman, which I think there are certain movies that it is blatantly ripping off, and I think I even brought that up when it came out. But um, yeah, it takes a different look at it, the Batman, where Dark Knight's kind of a crime thriller. It's more zoomed out, where it's trying to tackle all of crime in Gotham, with a few figureheads that we are focusing on, the quote unquote super villains. But the Batman is very zoomed in. It's a murder mystery. Um, and, you know, the Riddler is the main antagonist. I think it's about damn time we had Riddler done right on screen, considering that the last live action portrayal of the Riddler was Jim Carrey in Batman Forever, which is absolutely terrible. Not the worst one, but it's pretty bad. So yeah, I'm very glad. I think that's something that we both praised when the movie came out was Paul Dano as the Riddler, and you know, you're really like scared of him because he's so grounded. It isn't like some dude in a green suit with a bunch of question marks all over it with a big staff with a question mark on the top, like trying like giving him a puzzle box, and the puzzle box is, oh, it's so corny, but there's a riddle in it, and there's a, if you don't solve this riddle, you're gonna be lowered into a crocodile pit or whatever. Like, he's a serial killer. Riddler is essentially Zodiac, or Kevin Spacey from Seven. Uh, and I think that's interesting. That's probably the way to go with it, um, while keeping the characters like traits alive. It isn't like a complete departure, where it's like, well, really the only similarity to this character from like the comics or whatever, the adaptation that it's basing it off of, is just the name. Sometimes uh, comic book movies do that, which I don't care about at all. Um, but I know that, like, you know, comic book nerds care about it, but I don't care about them. So whatever. But yeah. Okay, let's talk about the Seven thing, because I think it's about it's I think it's gonna be hard to talk about this movie and not talk about Seven, because um, yeah, this movie is basically it's almost a remake of Seven, um, kind of. It feels very inspired. I'll say it's inspired by Seven. But for those who have not seen Seven, I feel like it's a movie that most people know the premise of. But it's Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman are detectives in, I don't know if they ever say what city it is, just whatever, big city, and they're trying to track down a serial killer that is killing victims, and each victim is representative of the seven deadly sins. And they're all very grotesque and brutal. Um, it's probably my favorite David Fincher movie. Um, but yeah, I think there's a bunch of like story beats that are pretty much lifted from Seven and put into the Batman. I think the big one is like right at the end. The serial killer, the plan is pretty much complete, and then he gives himself up. That's something that happens in both movies around the same point in the story, where Kevin Spacey gives himself up uh, because he needs to have Brad Pitt be the last victim, the last representation, whatever, the last deadly sin, and Riddler needs to give himself up so that he can chill in jail while a bunch of QAnon weirdos shoot up Madison Square Garden. Um, and like whatever. It's the same kind of beat, and there's even like an interrogation scene which feels ripped out of Seven. That interrogation scene, like I feel like that's pretty much the one from Seven. I haven't seen Seven in a long time, but uh, yeah, I was just like, oh boy. I think I brought it. I know I brought it up when it came out, but like this time it felt more apparent. I'm like, oh okay. Um, I know what movies you're watching, Matt Reeves, but I appreciate it. If you're lifting from anything, it should be from something great like that. And I think that the movie does add enough to make it its own thing. Like it's I don't know. I don't want to like say it's like completely derivative. Say, that almost implies that it has no artistic worth on its own. But I think the Batman it just is influenced by, and there's references to Seven. Um, I don't know. It does kind of have the same tone where everything's really grimy and grounded. And then like the kind of kill scenes are kind of shown to be more brutal and grotesque. I think the one that really stands out in my mind from the Batman is it's whatever. There's like this guy he has like a cage, and there's like rats in it, and it's like right next to his stomach, and there's like a tube from his mouth to like the rat cage, and so I think it's like implied that like the rats like eat through his stomach or something. It's something like that where the rats have to eat through the person to get food or whatever. Um, and while they don't show it, they would have shown it in Seven, or at least the aftermath of it. Um, the implication is something that's way darker, but you can get away with implying something super dark in a PG-13 movie, whereas Seven is R, so they can just show the grossest corpses ever, uh, which I like. I like it. But yeah, I think Batman is a pretty G dang good movie. I want to bring up also the relationship between Bruce and Alfred, because that is something I talked about a lot when I talked about Dark Knight Rises. Maybe more about the trilogy in general. I think that is one of the best parts of the Dark Knight trilogy is the relationship between Bruce and Alfred. And so in the new one, that was something I was looking for when rewatching this. I remember really liking Andy Serkis as Alfred. I really like Andy Serkis in general. Um, but now that I've seen all the Planet of the Apes movies, that was the last thing that Matt Reeves directed was the uh, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes. Andy Serkis was the mocap actor who played Caesar. So that's kind of how they met. And so then Andy Serkis was Alfred. I remember seeing that casting thing and being a little worried because I'm like, well, he's the mocap guy. Like, maybe that's me being not initiated, hadn't seen enough uh, things that Andy Serkis had been in. Um, but I'm like, he's gonna play Alfred. He looks mean. And no offense to Andy Serkis, he just kind of has a mean face. Um, but I think he does really well as Alfred. I don't think he's given like enough to do really. And I think a large part of that is that Matt Reeves really wanted to emphasize the detective aspect of Batman, which really hadn't been done before, at least in a live action movie, which I will give him props for because that is my favorite part of the Batman mythos is the murder mysteries, is the detective aspects of it. It isn't so much the crime fighting hero stuff. I love a good mystery, and that's why I love Batman so much. So I think putting the emphasis on that aspect of it doesn't give as much time for like little moments between Bruce and Alfred that maybe would have been maybe a little bit better to kind of reinforce their like dynamic a little bit, because I think in the movie as it stands right now, it does feel like a little bit of a jump where like we see Bruce and Alfred right at the beginning, and Alfred's like, "You need to take care of yourself." And then Bruce is like, "You're not my dad." And then Alfred's like, "I know." And I'm like, "Oh, well, well, okay, a little weird." Um, but like that's setting up the arc. Like I'm not gonna get upset that Bruce like has like some sort of like attachment issues with Alfred at the start of the movie because it changes. This isn't the Dark Knight trilogy where Michael Caine is just one of the most likable and charismatic people ever. So you can't really imagine Bruce being like, "Oh, screw you, Michael Caine," and wow, 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 wow. That's what Michael Caine would say. Um, so, yeah, I think, but yeah, that does change. But anyway, oh, whatever. I'm trying to get back on my train of thought. But it's a little bit of a jump where he's like, "You're not my dad, Alfred." And Alfred's like, "Oh, I'm so sad. I really want to be your dad, Bruce." And then he's blown up. And then it's like, "Oh, I care about you so much, Alfred." Like that's the realization moment is when you got exploded. And it's like, well, we never really saw Alfred and Bruce being friends until Alfred got blowed up. There was like two scenes with Alfred before before he gets exploded, and it's like, oh well, that seems a little weird. I think, and I I'm not usually one to advocate for a 3 hour movie being longer, but I almost wish that there were a couple more scenes added in the beginning, where we just see Bruce and Alfred just kind of being friends, having some sort of relationship there, because as it is, there's really not a whole lot of that. So that when Alfred does get blown up, as an audience member, that maybe um, let's assume that this audience member has never experienced another piece of Batman media in their entire lives. They really wouldn't care that Alfred got blowed up because we don't care about him as a character. You only care that Alfred got blowed up because uh, you know who Alfred is and you have that emotional tie to that character. So it's like, oh no, Alfred. But like, there's really no reason to be attached to this version of Alfred. Um, but I don't want to undersell Andy Serkis's performance because I think all of the scenes that he does have, he's really good in it. Um, Especially like once he does get blown up, him and Bruce have a really great like like heart to heart moment where they kind of have this really great conversation where they do kind of get more emotional and get to the heart of the relationship a little bit more. And I really liked that. I thought that both Andy Serkis and Robert Pattinson kind of knock it out of the park. That might be one of the best like character scenes in the entire movie. So yeah, I mean it does pay off, but I just wish there was more build up to it. I think. Um, so yeah, let me think. Is there anything? What other beats should I talk about? Because I don't want to just go through the plot. Um, but I think it is. It's a satisfying arc for especially the first installment. I don't know if this is going to be a trilogy. So far, we only know there's going to be one more. But I feel like that this movie was successful enough that it may warrant a trilogy. Um, I think that this is a pretty good first installment. I've had this movie rated on Letterboxd at a 4.5. Since then, and when I rewatched it, I rated it the same. Uh, but I think it's like the Across the Spider Verse thing, where I'm like, it's a 4.5. I'm not gonna give it a 5 because it's half a movie. I need to see where this pays off. The Batman is more complete than Across the Spider Verse. Not that whatever. Across the Spider Verse is a full movie too, but it's just like it ends on a cliffhanger, and I'm like, well, I need to see how this pays off because if this pays off, then it's a setup for nothing, you know. Where the Batman does feel like a more complete thing, aside from the Joker lead-in, which I don't really like. I think that kind of feels heavy-handed and dumb. But there is a Joker lead in Batman Begins. It's just not as in your face and overt than it is in the Batman. I think in Batman Begins, it's just like after all the dust is settled, then Bruce or whatever, Batman goes and meets up with Gordon, and Gordon's like, hey, there's a new guy on the scene. He leaves behind a calling card, and then it's a Joker card. And Batman's like, I'll get to the bottom of this. And then he flies away, and then the credits roll, and you're being like, oh boy, I'm so excited for the next film when Joker's gonna be in it. And so then I guess the Batman took a page out of that book, but they're like, wouldn't it be fun if we saw the Joker? And it was like, no, no, don't do that. Um, because I know what they're doing. They're setting up the sequel, but like, wouldn't it be just better just to not? Like, I think the way the Batman Begins did it was, I'm not gonna say perfect because that also feels heavy-handed, kind of dumb, but subtlety goes a long way, and just like a little hint that's gonna be coming next, that's like, oh, well, that's cool. I'm excited to see what that Joker's gonna look like, who's gonna play him. You know, like, oh, there's gonna be a bunch of questions. Whereas now with the Batman 2, I'm assuming I don't know if Joker's gonna be the main antagonist. For a while, it was rumored that it was going to be Clayface, and then Matt Reeves was like, no, but which I guess we'll talk about. Um, but I don't know. It's probably going to be Joker now, but there's no questions. It's just like, well, it's Barry Keoghan, and we know what he talks like. We know what he sounds like. Uh, uh, we've seen him, and so it's like, okay, if that's next, then that's next. Okay, no suspense, no, excitement, no lead up, no hype. It's just okay, okay, you're doing Joker next, cool. Um, I don't know. That's probably a problem with both of them, honestly, because you could make the same exact argument for Batman Begins. I just think that the subtle approach is way better. So I don't know. There was something else I was gonna. Oh, Matt Reeves. Okay, so we need to talk about Matt Reeves because while I just said that this movie is perfect, I'm a little bit worried for the sequel, and I think I may have talked about it a little bit when I talked about the Dark Knight trilogy. So I'll keep it brief. Matt Reeves has been pretty public. Been doing a lot of interviews and press junket stuff with Penguin being out. People asking him like, "Whoa, what's the future for this universe?" And he's been like, "Yeah, we're gonna do more spin-off shows for HBO, and they're all gonna be like kind of character focused, like the Penguin show." because well, Star Wars does it, and you know, Star Wars has been a huge success. All of those shows that have been just one character have been very successful. They're all very good, and what's more important is that all of the fans love them. So we're going to take a page out of that book, and all of the Batman shows are going to be, I guess, character studies on one character. Um, I don't necessarily want to give Star Wars all the credit for starting that, but I just think it's an interesting parallel where it's like two giant franchises, and it's like we need to model it after the one that's failing and doing terribly. Um, but also, when it comes to stuff that Matt Reeves has said, he's been like, well, we need to change Batman stuff because it's too ridiculous. And that is a sentiment that I heavily disagree with, because it's a comic book movie. I don't think that like James Gunn makes like actually I take back what I was going to say. James Gunn makes perfect comic book movies, um, because he really knows how to take the subject like matter seriously, or as seriously as you can take some of these goofier concepts. I think James Gunn does a great job like of taking goofy stuff and not like pointing at it and saying that it's goofy. Like that is something that I absolutely hate when it comes to like I was gonna say modern Marvel movies, but you could really just say all MCU movies, where it's like, isn't it ridiculous that we got a big green guy that runs around and punches things? Isn't that silly? It's like, no, just stop. Like, we get it. Like, it's goofy, but like, if you take it seriously, then like, we'll take the movie seriously and we'll just play into it. Like, James Gunn put Polka Dot Man in the Suicide Squad, and like, he's the emotional weight of that movie. Like, he is a tortured character that has like a terrible disease where he has to like shoot out like I don't know, like plasma polka dots out of his hands every day, or else he swells up and turns into a David Cronenberg body horror like movie for like 2 seconds. Like that, but we're never like laughing. It's never like, isn't it ridiculous? It's Polka Dot Man. It's like, no, Polka Dot Man is like a serious character in the context of the movie. It's only funny to us, like as outsiders, because it's Polka Dot Man. But the movie never like stops what it's doing dead in its tracks and being like, look, laugh at this. Um, and so I think Matt Reeves' attitude is like a complete overcorrection, where I think James Gunn is like perfectly in the middle. Like that's a perfect comic book tone. And then you got Marvel further on the right, where it's like, we're too goofy and we can point at it and like point out how goofy it is. And then Matt Reeves is like, we need to completely shut out every single like, goofy, even if it's like comic book silly, we need to cut that out and change it so that it's as grounded, as real, as dark and dingy as possible. Which, I mean, I'd be lying if I said that like I wouldn't like. I love the Batman. I love that tone that it strikes. It's a great atmosphere. It's like one of the best comic book movies in my opinion. But I think that like if this is a trend that he's going to like continue with as he goes on, then it's like, well, okay, just make a neo noir thriller. Like, why does it need to be a Batman movie or TV show or whatever? Like, why? Why does it need to do that? Um, and it's just like some of his changes just seem so unnecessary, where it's like he changes he changes the penguin's name from Oswald Cobblepot to Oz Cobb, because he's like, Cobblepot is too ridiculous a last name. So we're just gonna change it to Cobb. And it's like, okay, why? Like, I need to see a legit reason for why you think that name is like too ridiculous. That name is intentional. But he decided to take a character a different direction. But like, you know, Cobblepot, it's like it's supposed to be a play on like an old English sounding name. Oswald Cobblepot. It's like the most stereotypical British name. If we were just coming up with something that was making fun of British people, that's the name we would give them, and that's the point. He's supposed to be kind of a phony. His family is like rich, like the Waynes are, but like they were kind of frauds. They paraded around. They were like as if they were as rich as the Waynes, but they were kind of sketchy into gambling or whatever. And then I think his parents die, and then he kind of leads a crime empire. So he's just a big charlatan, a big fraud. So he has like a stereotypical, like fake British name because he's trying to like, you know, play this character of someone who has status, of someone who's like a higher class guy, but actually is kind of sketchy. Uh, just changing it to Oz Cobb, it just removes that. It removes that aspect of his character, and it's just like Oz Cobb. That's like a trucker name, you know, like or something like that. It's like okay, so we're removing the like the fraud, the charlatan aspect of Penguin's character, and we're just making him a gangster. Why make that Penguin? Like, I don't know. And this isn't like the worst thing ever. Like there were people that were like, boycott the new Penguin show until they change it to Gobblepot. It's like, okay, shut up. That's dumb. You can make these like kinds of changes. I don't mind, but it's like there has to be a reason for it, and it has to be a good reason, I think, because this is not a good reason. It's just like, well, I want to be taken seriously as a filmmaker, and I feel like I can't be taken seriously if my main character's name is Oswald Cobblepot. It's like, well, just learn to live a little. Have some fun for once in your goddamn life, Matt Reeves. Have you ever read a comic book and smiled? Or are you just like angry at every single name? It's like, how am I supposed to take this murder mystery seriously when I don't even know the Joker's name? It's like, whatever. Like every single Batman villain's name is like they're so on the nose. It's like Poison Ivy's name is Pamela Isley. It's like you rearrange the letters, and then you add some, and it's like Poison Ivy, Pamela Isley. It's like that's so on the nose. If Matt Reeves uh, did Poison Ivy, he'd have to change that name because it's too close. And it's like just have fun for once. Or when Joker's in it and Harley Quinn is gonna be in it, maybe they're gonna have to change her name to from Harleen Quinzel because that's too goofy. It's too goofy. It's just a coincidence that the Joker and Harley Quinn's name just so happens to be Harleen Quinzel. That's too unbelievable. I need this to be grounded in my super real and gritty universe. It's just like, just stop it. Stop it. If this is the direction you're gonna want to go, like, I think I'm a little bit worried. And like I brought up Clayface before. That was the big rumor for the sequel, was that Clayface was going to be the main antagonist for the Batman 2. Honestly, a great idea, or a good idea, I'll say. The Clayface thing, honestly, it seems like it could like slip into being pretty similar into like the Riddler thing, just because it just seems like it could be just another murder mystery. Which I guess if you want to turn Batman into Columbo, then I guess. Um, but uh, yeah, he's like, no, it's too ridiculous. I don't want to do any of the villains that are too silly. Well, then what's the point? Why are you making comic book movies? Like that, the whole idea. I'm not saying that every comic book movie needs to shoot a blue laser into the sky and have a bunch of space bugs flying around. I'm actually saying the opposite. I don't like that either. But we need to find a balance here. We're overcorrecting. The pendulum has been swinging to the right, and now Matt Reeves is trying to yank it all the way to the left, and it's like, okay, we need to just chill in the middle. Um, and I know everybody's been hating on James Gunn for no reason, or at least all the DC fanboys have. Scratch that. All of the Zack Snyder fanboys have been really upset at James Gunn for ruining the DCU, even though nothing has come out from it yet. So I don't know. It's pretty hard to ruin something that hasn't even started. I guess they're just mad that the Zack Snyder universe is over, which is fine. It's actually good. I'm glad it's done. I gave Zack Snyder too much praise last week, so I need to correct him and put him in his place. I'm glad that he doesn't make Batman movies anymore. He was terrible at it. Even though I did have some complaints for the Batman, it pales in comparison to where the character has been for the last 10 years or so. So it's an improvement. I just think that there are some things that uh, some constructive criticism. I don't think that Matt Reeves should stop making Batman movies. Whatever. I'm not like saying that the Batman 2 is going to be a terrible disaster. I'm just saying that these are some trends that I have noticed that I have some issues with. But if they're not fixed, it's not going to make a great movie terrible just because Oz Cobb's name is Oz Cobb. It doesn't that doesn't matter. A great story is a great story, but I'm just saying there are some details here that I would like ironed out a little bit, and fix some pacing stuff in the story, allocate some more resources to character stuff, uh, and I don't know. The next one can be 3 hours too. The 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 runtime on the Batman really doesn't feel that long. I watched it all in one sitting, and it didn't feel like I was sitting there for 3 hours at all. It's a great movie. So that's my review for the Batman. A great flick. Also, probably my favorite bat suit. I don't know if I have anything else to say. Oh, great Batmobile too. Uh, all of the like costumes and set design and whatever, all the props, everything on the like production side of it is absolutely phenomenal. A complete. Here's what I'll say. I know I yeah, just complained about Matt Reeves yanking the pendulum, but uh, let's just say that like the Bat flick, if that's what you want to call it, the Ben Affleck Batman suit is fine. It's clearly inspired by the Dark Knight Returns costume. I know that was something that Zack Snyder loves that graphic novel, even though he completely missed the point of it. But that doesn't surprise me at all. He doesn't seem to understand what makes graphic novels great, as exemplified in Watchmen, where it was just like, oh, Watchmen's great because you can kill people and have tits in it. It's like, okay, well, great. You completely missed the point. And so when he was like, I need to adapt The Dark Knight Returns. So I'm just going to have Ben Affleck be angry and miserable and not trust Superman for literally no reason, and then just not kill him because he says Martha. And Batman kills people all the time in Batman versus Superman. He like shoots a rocket at a car and blows it up when there's people inside. Like it's terrible. And also the Batmobile in Batman versus Superman's a tank, and I hate that. Can we stop giving Batman tanks? It's not fun. It's not cool. That's why the Batman's great, because he's just in a cool car. It's kind of a Batmobile, but honestly, it's just a cool car, and I like that a lot. So that's it. That's it for the Batman. Matt Reeves, if you want to hire me as a script supervisor, I am available, and I would love to do it. So that's it for me. I didn't watch any other movies this week because I was too tired after Cemetery. So sorry, Truffaut. I don't know. It's probably Jacques Truffaut. He's a French guy who did the 400 Blows. Sorry, didn't review your movie. I had to watch a better one. just twisting the knife a little bit. Anyways, I'm gonna throw it on over to Babby for his segment of the show.
My cat just sat on me. Okay. I'll try not
Perfect
to
timing.
break anything. Um, Big week again,
Oh,
because it just doesn't stop apparently. I have like 3 pages of albums this year. It's insane. Um, let's start with the singles. Uh, a single one that I've
one.
heard at least. New Ethel Kane, Punish,
Oh, I have a single too.
off the new EP. Perverts comes out January 8th. It's an EP, but I think it's going to be like an hour and a half long or something, which is very on brand for her. But Punish is fantastic. It is what you'd expect from an Ethel Kane track. Um, it's about 7 minutes, slow burn piano ballad that has like a crazy build up at the end. It's fantastic. This is going to be an amazing EP. I have no doubt about it. She is just insane. So yeah, that's a single. What we got next? This is weird because I've listened to half of this album. I just have not gotten to the whole thing yet, but it is something of interest. This is someone called Haley Hendricks with the worst spelling of Hendrix I've ever seen in my entire life. What on earth is that? This
Oh,
is a Seed of a Seed new album. Um, it's kind of indie folk singer songwriter, but it's got like a alt country kind of flair to it.
oh.
Um, it came on today on just like after I was done listening to an album, it just came up as like a recommended thing. And I'm really liking it so far. I think I've gotten about halfway through it.
Mm.
Um, but it's really sick. I actually really like it. Um, I
Oh,
think they're based out of Oregon, which makes sense.
yeah.
You get very, nature themed kind of imagery and stuff with this
Mm-hmm.
thing. Um, and I'm really enjoying it. So I think it's definitely worth a check out. I'll probably talk about it next week when I'm hoping there's a little bit of a lull,
Mm.
um, so I can go back to it and take it in. But uh, I never really get music off of like things being recommended to me after albums, but this one, I think like Gemini started playing, and I was like, "Ooh, this is really good."
Hmm.
So definitely something to check out. I'll
Plus,
talk about it more next week, but
plus, there's a song named after me.
that's true. Jerry's song.
Exactly.
But if it's good, I need to start a garden on my wheel or something.
Oh, okay. I might
Just
listen to this. You kind of piqued my
yeah,
interest.
I think you would enjoy it quite a bit. I'm like,
Okay.
this is sounding great. Um, all folk just sounds even better as soon as daylight savings hits. So
That's true.
it just all adds up. Okay, we got West Side Gun and a DJ Drama album. Um, I have not listened to this yet, actually. It's out though, so I will talk about it. Um, yeah, I will listen to it probably for next week. This week was a lot bigger than I was expecting it to be. Um, and all the albums that came out were pretty great. So, but yeah, I'm excited. Hopefully, it's a like above average Griselda project at this point. I feel like they're all blending together a little bit too much, and they're getting a bit stale for me. I don't know the last time that a really great Griselda drop happened. That might have been like 21 or 22. Um, so just grown off me a little bit. I think they came on with like a very fresh sound that felt old but still like kind of updated, and now it got stale. There wasn't a lot of evolution within that area. But maybe this one will be good. Who knows? Um, Getting into actual albums that I've listened to all the way through. We'll start with Freddie Gibbs. I think this was a surprise release. I did not know anything about this until it came out. It came out on Halloween, and the cover is kind of spooky, so I think it was like a Halloween surprise drop,
Mm.
which is pretty sick.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. It is You Only Die Once, and the once has a one for the O, which I
Now
guess
that's
works.
awesome.
You only die ince.
Ince.
Ince. Um, this is pretty good. Like I was not expecting something like this fleshed out for like a surprise drop, which because I was like, okay, it seems kind of Halloween themed. Should I be taking this as a main release? But I think definitely should. Um, I like it a lot more than Soul Sold separately. I was not too hot on that record. It just did not have the same kind of quality I wanted from him. It went more into like the poppy rap area, which I didn't really like. A lot of the features with like Rick Ross and stuff too. It felt a little bit too commercial for what he does, which is weird. Um, but I mean, Alfredo and Bandana and Pinata and all those are like amazing records. Um, this doesn't have any of the flashy producers like that, but it does have 454 and Binks on it, which are very interesting people to be on a Freddie Gibbs record. And it goes across really well. I'm always like surprised by just how good he can write hooks. I think that's a very difficult thing for a lot of rappers to do, but his hooks are just so incredibly smooth. And it's not like he has to sing them or anything. He just has like really great catchy hooks that just stick. Um, there's a typical, voicemail thingy that goes throughout the record that happens on like so many hip hop records. But it's like this devil guy, so it plays into the Halloween theme, and
Mm.
it's pretty funny, and I enjoy it. Um, but yeah, great record. Definitely check it out if you're into Freddie Gibbs. Do not miss it. I do need to re-listen to it a couple times, but there's been a couple songs that are definitely like stuck in my head. I think Brick Fees is fantastic. Um, what's the other one I like? I think Origami. That one's pretty great as well. But yeah, check it out. We had that new Lil Uzi album. Sounds terrible.
Did you listen to it?
I listened to a couple songs because I was seeing it get like really bad reviews. I'm like, okay, how bad can this be? I listened to the first Eternal Take when it came out in 2020 because, again, it was one of those where people were hyping it up so much, like, because it was like meant to come out like years ago. Um, and that record had a couple of fun stuff, like fun songs on it. They're not really my style, but like I remember Prices being really fun. It's one of those stupid songs that I just really end up liking for whatever reason. There's always a couple of those every single year. But yeah, this thing is garbage. The AI generated cover is awful.
Mm.
What they did to their Spotify page is awful with the cover arts. I didn't realize that until you pulled up the page. Like, this looks horrible.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. People are making like nitrous jokes about it. It does literally sound like he was on nitrous with this because like the it, they're not on beat at all.
Oh.
It's like ahead or behind a considerable amount, and it
Oh.
is just not great. You get like a stank face while listening to it, but not in the good way that you want from a hip hop song, and more of like a ooh, did anybody like listen to this back before? Like I don't understand how this released. It is atrocious. I only got through like 6 songs, I think. I was curious on the Big Time Rush feature because that is the only feature on the record, and it was a peculiar one.
Yes.
Um, Big Time Rush does not do any musical things on the song. I think they just introduce it and leave.
Oh.
So it's like a 10-second feature.
But why Big Time Rush?
I don't know. I have zero idea. It does not make any sense. um, I forgot what the hook is on the song, but like there was something about I don't know. He's like, I'm big time rushed or something.
Oh no.
That's the hook. Um, yeah, just just not great. Um, just thought I'd talk about the record just because it is out.
It is.
Apparently Charlie Puth was on this thing. That's
Oh,
why.
that's fun.
Um, it's very fun. But there's that if you like listening to bad things,
Oh, and I
which
do.
we do. We listened to Cemetery. That was fun.
We sure did.
That's a bad thing I enjoy. Let's talk about not bad things I enjoy, though.
Hmm.
The Cure, new album, their first since 2008. Songs of a Lost World, finally out. I think this album has been teased for probably about 5 years, and they finally end up releasing it. Um, and Robert Smith was talking about another album being almost done, so there might be just a resurgence, which is crazy for a band that started making music in 1979. Um, but it is pretty great. I think it is surprising that it is like this good because there's such a distance between albums. And Robert Smith feels like he sounds like he's 30 still, which is insanity when you like see how he looks nowadays, because he definitely is showing his age, but his voice has not aged a minute, and it's kind of insane. That man must be drinking tea like a madman. I don't. I think I would imagine he's not a big smoker or drinker, because I don't think you can hold up a voice like that well, if you're
Mm,
doing any of that, especially for like rock stars of this era. I feel like most of their voices are shot. Like you look at like Aerosmith or any of these other big bands, and like their voices are just absolutely destroyed from the drug use and the constant touring and all of this stuff.
yeah.
Um, but he has the miracle of a brilliant voice still, and it sounds great. Um, the record kind of sounds like an updated Disintegration. I talked about that for the single. Um, it's definitely not on the same level as Disintegration at all. I think people are hyping this thing up a lot. I think they need to calm down a little bit, because it does not touch Disintegration, but it is Disintegration-esque, where everything is very moody and extremely watery and dragged out. Everything is so slow on this thing, but it is a really, really, really pretty record. I think mostly touching on like mortality and just growing age, which makes sense for a band, this old. Um, but yeah, the writing is great. The vocals are great. There's one gigantic issue I have with this album though, and it drags it down quite a significant amount for me. Like it is still incredibly enjoyable, but it could be so much better. And that this is mixed like an Imagine Dragons record, and I don't know why they made this decision, because it cannot be intentional. The same band that made Disintegration should not be mixing an album like this. um, Everything is so loud and everything is competing with each other. Um, it sounds fine on like a car speaker or like a phone speaker, but if you listen with headphones or like on speakers, if you're listening to a vinyl or whatever, it is extremely noticeable, and it gets grating, especially the drums. Like you get like distortion between elements because everything is so loud and fighting for each other at times, and it's just I don't know why they made this decision, because I'm assuming it's intentional. Um, Maybe a little like, oh, it's 2024. Everybody compresses their mixes like this, so we need to
Oh,
just shove everything in there. Um, it doesn't work. It's such a shame, because this record is great. And I'm still gonna listen to it, but I'm gonna have to talk about it, just because like I think it's very noticeable too. Like sometimes I'll talk about mixing things, and a lot of people are like, "What are?" There's not really like a difference there. I think this record is very noticeable. I think the drums, especially if you listen to this and just listen to the drums, you can just like, as soon as you know that, like it feels very claustrophobic for a record that is extremely spacey. Um, but yeah, that's the only negative I have here. Everything else in here is really fantastic, and I still do love it. I just wish it was mixed better in the studio version. Um, they did do like a live concert the day of the release that I listened to, on YouTube, like an actual concert. Um, and that sounded fantastic. Like the way they mixed that and everything sounded so much better. It's just like part of Disintegration being so good is like you get these fantastic, quiet, serene moments, and just like the dynamic range of that record is so beautiful and gorgeous. Um, and that just like it kind of flattens it too much for the new record for me to like really be able to get into that atmosphere they're creating here. Um, but still, great record. So if you're into The Cure, check it out. It is an absolute miracle that a band this old is able to release a record this good, especially after like this long of a break between albums. It is incredibly impressive. Um, I still think a Cure deep dive is on my list for uh, eventually, probably next year at some point. Um, I don't know. We'll probably do like pornography on the channel, which will be a fun one to upload to YouTube. I don't know how we're gonna get around that.
I don't
Uh,
know.
but that's probably the next one we'll do on the channel. I don't know if we're gonna do any more after that on the channel, but I will probably go through most of these, um, because yeah, Robert Smith is amazing, and this band is amazing from what I've heard. Um, yeah, fantastic. Alrighty. I think that's all except the big guy. Just doing a one double check. Do you have a single you need to talk about?
Well, yeah, I don't know if I have a whole lot to say, but Emotion Heap dropped a single.
Oh,
Yeah, it's spooky. It's called "What Have You Done to Me." came out last Friday. Uh, yeah, it's a little over 6 minutes long. Apparently, she was working on it for, I think, 2.5 years or something. I don't know if this is the lead in to an album. I don't know if I hope, but I kind of think. But man, sounds
Judging on
very
the
different.
single art.
Yeah, it's so I listened to it once, and I was taken off guard. I think is the nice way to say it. I should probably listen to it again, but from what I remember, it was mixed kind of bad. Like her vocals were really buried in the mix, and then the instrumental was like it's like it's I don't even know how to even really describe it. It's like really like dark and gothic. Uh not like electro pop like her usual. It's very different. And then you can just kind of like hear her voice kind of echoing in the background. Um so yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think she's said as to whether or not this is a lead into something or if it's just a thing, but it's a thing, and Emotion Heap is back. So
Because of course.
I guess, yeah, I have
Who
no.
else isn't back at this point?
I know. I think her last album came out over a decade ago. She did the Cordata Bites thing, the one and two that
Hmm.
came out in 2022, but that was a I think a soundtrack for a podcast. So doesn't count as an album. So her last album was in 2014. So it's been a minute. So I'll take it.
Real.
That's all
I
I have
need
to
to
say.
listen to that.
Yeah, you
The
might
cover
like it
art
more than
and
I do.
genres intrigue me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
It seems like my kind of thing right now.
I think so.
Um, yeah. Sweet. Okay. Let's talk Night Palace. New album, Mount Eerie. First
Oh,
in 4 years. Uh, well, first Mount Eerie album in 5 years. First Phil album in 4 years. Um, this thing is 26 songs in an hour and 20 minutes. Um, I first listened to it about a week ago at this point. I've been listening to it pretty much nonstop, which is crazy for an hour and a half album, but is maybe the most re-listenable hour and a half album I've heard in a long time. I think it's incredibly difficult to do that with an album that long. Um, yeah, this thing is incredible. This feels like I was kind of talking about this like after I did microphones in 2020. I'm like this new record probably is going to be some kind of like resurgence for him. It's been a long break. I feel like there's been enough time from tragic events where there is this little bit of not moving on, but ascending from that kind of subject matter into something different. Um, and this kind of like takes it back to the dude that wonders about nature and asks big questions and lives in his head. And we kind of get that here. It sounds like all of his albums kind of slammed into one, which is kind of a basic statement to say about an artist because like there's obviously albums that sound like that for every artist. But it takes all of the elements of like his really crazy experimental stuff off of like Glow Part 2 and Mount Eerie the album, and stuff like Wind's Poem, but it also takes like the more mature and very interesting songwriting of like Sauna onward, I would say. And the mix is just brilliant. Like this album includes so much, it is almost intimidating to even just like get into. Um, there's so many different styles and things here. You would think there would be clashes in certain areas, and there really aren't. Like everything works really well. I think the first listen or two for people is going to be very jarring because you don't really know where the album's going at all. Um, this feels like a Glow Part Two for this era. It's been 23 years since that album has come out, um, but I think in a lot of ways these two are kind of connected in a way. Both are just like these insanely huge and like ambitious projects that use like tape loops and distortion and analog recording experiments and all these different things. Like all of that is back invited into his catalog again. Um, and they all pay off like really, really, really well. Um, I liked all of the singles for this album. I think the singles painted a different picture than what this thing actually is. Um, it feels very, I don't know. The Gold Part 2 is similar to this too, because like there's a lot of short songs that kind of just like start happening and happening and happening, and you kind of just have to catch up with everything. This thing was made by him just like writing poems in a notebook and then refining the poems and then making the music afterwards, which is usually the opposite of what he does. Usually it's music first and then lyrics just kind of come in at the last minute, um, which is crazy because of how good of a songwriter he is. Um, but yeah, hearing all the analog stuff back and all of the experiments and weirdo sounds that we get again are just like it's incredibly refreshing and feels just like after listening to all of his stuff and all of his journey, it's like a triumphant kind of return. And he hasn't lost form. Like since 2017, I have given him 3 100s from Crow Looked at Me through Microphones in 2020. The
Mm.
only thing is Lost of Wisdom Part 2, which is a little bit lower than everything else. But like, there hasn't been a fall off since that point. There's just been a big switch in the way he sounds. He went from like Wind's Poem and Sauna, which are like huge atmospheric records that really play on atmosphere and nature metaphor and meditation and these things. And then Crow was incredibly bare bones. Um, so when you mix these things on here, that it just turns out really well. Um, just the opener immediately grabs you. It is like he talks about like seeing lightning and stuff, and the song literally sounds like lightning through like the form of this analog distorted guitar that is just like buzzing this whole time. Huge Fire is fantastic as well. The amount of distortion and noise on this album is like far past anything he's done. Like it gets close to Samurai Sword levels, which is insane because I never thought he'd get that loud again. Um, Microphones in 2020 was pretty sparse because it is just 2 chords, but the distortion he layers on that song is really, really great, and we're getting a ton of that here. Um, but just the range from like track 1 to 5 is crazy. Night Palace is this weird experimental lightning sounding distorted guitar track. Huge Spire is a indie rock track that turns into a noise rock track at the end. Breaths is a kind of noisy ambient track, and then Swallowed Alive is a grindcore super loud metal track that's a minute long, that features his daughter on vocals.
Oh,
Into My Canopy, which is a love song about his daughter, which is like the most gentle and sweet song on earth. Um, all this within like the first 10 minutes of the record, and there's 26 songs to go through. Um, he with the vinyl packaging, he kind of broke everything out into like chapters, so it's easier to kind of like contextualize what's going on in certain parts, which is definitely helpful for me when I have to like somehow sum this thing up. Um, but there's so many just fantastic things on this record, just like the themes of nature and big questions and impermanence and all these things are coming back to him. It feels like he's finally reached that headspace where he can go back into it and continue on, which is like in itself its own reward to hear that. um Not like the super tragic stuff wasn't amazing, it is, but like you don't want someone to be in that headspace forever. It's not healthy. um
right.
but this feels incredibly healthy. This feels like he's really back in his element, doing what he wants to do. Um, there's so many good moments. Like even Soft Air, which is like a minute long track, has such a like really cool experiment on it where he's like talking about like breathing in and out, and when he breathes in, like there's this like fuzzy guitar that just like emulates that and just like brings up the energy of the track insanely well. Um, Wind and Fog Part 2 is like a incredibly like nocturnal slacker rock piece that is just like better than a lot of the stuff on Wind's Poem. Um, there's a run of tracks from 13 to 15 that's I Heard Whales, I Saw Another Bird, and I Spoke with a Fish. That run is just great. Um, I Heard Whales, he mimics the sound of like an ocean and whales talking to each other through static and guitars and all these different feedback things. I Saw Another Bird was a single. That one was really fantastic as well, just like taking this crow metaphor and like really putting a bow on it. Um, and then I Spoke with a Fish. I have to talk about this song because this is like one of the best moments I think I've ever had with an album first listen. Um, I think going into a Phil album, you kind of have to expect an entire range of emotions, and those range of emotions for the last couple records have been like devastating. Um, this song is about him talking to a fish, and he gives the fish a character like he does on the Mount Eerie album for the vultures and everything. But the fish is an auto-tuned voice of him, and there's a trap 808 beat that comes in when the fish talks to him just out of nowhere on this like indie rock track. And I just laughed out loud when I first heard it. But then the song transitions into the most gorgeous like atmosphere, underwater atmosphere you've ever heard in your life. Um, and it's just jaw dropping. And then he ends the song with like saying to the fish that like he really likes his style and how like fish use one muscle to just kind of like swim through the water with ease. And then they end it with a Big Lebowski sample of the "I Like Your Style Too" man from the dude,
Oh, yeah.
just in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, this is the best album I've ever heard. It's so great. And then after you get done with all that goofy stuff, he enters new territory again because there's a run from 17 to 19, which is non-metaphorical decolonization, November Rain, and co-owner of trees, where he gets really in-depth and political out of nowhere, which he has not done, I don't think, ever in song like this. I mean, there's been mentions of things in like Crow and Now Only, but you don't really pick up on a lot. I mean, if you listen to his interviews and stuff, you kind of understand his worldview. Um, but this is the first time he's really talked about it. So non-metaphorical decolonization is about what you think it is about. I'm assuming he read Decolonization is Not a Metaphor, which is a very popular anarchist text. Um, the song has just like beautiful waves of distortion and stuff, and then it calms down and it's like talking about how everything is on stolen land and he lives in this like insanely beautiful place in the country, but like we don't really own anything, and like all of this land was made by genociding a group of people. um, and then that leads into November Rain, which is about like how he lives on an island, and this is like a popular tourist destination where like insanely rich people buy up houses and then live in them for like 3 days or like 3 months out of the year. So he like trespasses on their yard and stuff, which is like great. Um, just the subject matter here is like so unexpected but fantastic. And then Co-owner of Trees being about like how he he bought land and it feels really weird to own land, and like
Mm.
why do I get this piece of land which is mine, and why can't I go to other places and things like that. Really fantastic. Oh, this record is so good. I think that the ending of it floored me as well. I think the Gleam Part 3 through the end is just one of the most striking moments I've had in his discography. The Gleam Part 3 is very similar to the Gleam Part 2 on the Glow Part 2. uh, Instrumental, pretty much the same, different instruments and stuff, cadence and everything the same. I think this is actually better than the Gleam Part 2, though. I really enjoy it. It feels like an updated version of it. He's just going through that track and just kind of like updating it to his mind state now, 23 years later. Um, and it's really great. Uh, whew. Stone Woman gives birth to a child at night, then Demolition, then I Need New Eyes is maybe like the best 3 track run I've heard in a long time. Stone Woman is an incredible, just like we have these Winds poem esque tracks where the atmosphere is just soaked and it feels so like nocturnal and airy and just tranquil. Um, I think across these 3 tracks, he's focusing on like he went to a meditation ritual on like some island in Washington and just like recounting his experiences at that. Um, which makes a lot of sense. I think on Sauna is a lot about meditation and Zen and those kind of things, and that's why I love that record so much. Is like he captures the meditative headspace so well on that thing, so he brings that back for this final kind of length of the record. Um, yeah, Demolition is 12 minutes. I was not sure what to expect from this song, but I did not expect a spoken word. Pretty much incredibly minimal. Like the instruments are used for effect and not for music. It is a straight spoken word poem for 12 minutes, and it is incredible. Talking about like, um, I think this is like kind of based at his meditation ritual because the way it's all like done is very like meditative, and how the thoughts just kind of like flow over him, and he's just kind of reciting these things. Um, Talking about how like uh, colonization and all of these things are just like top of his mind as he lives in like this beautiful place, and that there's a gigantic blind spot for everybody that lives in this country where nobody wants to acknowledge that like we are building everything on the death and genocide of an entire people. I think a lot of people on the left don't even acknowledge that all the time either, which is just insane to me. um,
Cowards.
and it's just like hearing Phil say it is just so much more impactful than certain other people. I think he just has a way of reciting these things with just like such genuine heart and soul that it just like is crushing. Um, it's really fantastic. There's a line about like stone-faced spectators glazing over the genocides, and stuff like that on that song. I'm like, oh my god, this is just like is really digging into it, and it's a phenomenal track. It puts you in this certain meditative headspace with him that is just incredibly contemplative and mournful, and just like this endless yearning for something else. I think all of like I feel like most people with the brain have this kind of like sense of dissociation with the current way things are going, and just like this rage inside that can't really be quelled because everything is just so dissonant and horrible. Um, and when that track finally ends, you get new I Need New Eyes, which is just a wash of just like gorgeous layering. It is the biggest catharsis point I've heard in a while. It is just washes over you. His vocals are fantastic. It's a perfect way to end the album. It just breaks me every time, and I don't know why. It's just like a beautiful way to end this thing. Um, yeah, it's phenomenal. Like it's near perfect. I did not want to like go out the gate and give it something like extremely crazy, because like some people do that where it's like, oh yep, I've heard enough, this is perfect. It's pretty close to it though. It could get there. um it is just like it's beautiful. It's hard to listen to at times, it's incredibly fun to listen to at other times. Like everything here is just so Phil that like this is a completely unique experience that you cannot get from any other artist. um I need to talk about the packaging too. The vinyl packaging is really cool. um so the vinyl packaging features like a, let me see if I can go to the website so I can get the actual dimensions to this thing. Um, it is a gigantic poster, which is, I think, like 63 inches by like 48 inches or something. Um, let's see. Where are your specs, Phil? Um, yeah, 62 by 43. Uh, Gigantic poster. I'm 6 feet tall, and it covers my like almost my entire length when I try to hold it up. Um, but the poster is the jacket and everything for the record. It is folded in a way that resembles a traditional gatefold vinyl, but it's all the poster because there's so much paper here. It holds up like a regular vinyl sleeve. So you have to like open it and then continue to open it to like get the entire poster. And when you fold it up, it's a traditional looking vinyl, which is like insanely cool. And it has the original poems and then the lyrics and breakdowns for everything, every single song on here. And then there's an incredibly long bio in there, which is the same one he put out in his newsletter, which is incredibly informative for this record. So if you're really digging this thing, I implore you to like really look at that because it makes this record so much easier to take in. So I kind of knew what to expect when I was getting into this for the first time. Um, but yeah, this is incredible. Like it's definitely my album of the year. I don't think anything can really beat this at this point, but this year's been a little crazy, so I'm not going to say anything too much. Um, but yeah, it's phenomenal. It's such a evolution of his style while also like being so much of him that it just completely makes sense that this is what uh, kind of came out. Um, I think he's going on tour, so I'll definitely be seeing him on tour, um, doing that whole thing, and that's the entire discography up until this point. So yeah, next thing for me to do is do a whole video on it, which will come out eventually because this thing's going to take up a lot more space than I thought it would. Which I guess makes sense for an hour and a half album. Um, but yeah, absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. almost surpassed my expectations, even though I was expecting something pretty good. But like this turned out to be one of his best things he's done, which is crazy. If I would have gave this 100, which is still possible, I would have gave 4 100s to this man since 2017, which is insane. Um, but yeah, that's Night Palace. Um, I don't think. What do we have next week? Do we have anything?
No, I don't think.
That would be nice. Father John Misty's at the end of the month, so we got a little bit
Yeah,
of time for that.
yeah. Mahashmashana.
Yes, of course.
It's my favorite album to say.
It is pretty fun to say. Oh yeah, we got Absol this Friday, so I'll probably talk about that
Oh,
next week.
okay.
Um, things are slowing down a little bit, which is great because I can't take any more. There's been too much. Stop. I've never listened to this many albums in a year. It's insane. Um, at least albums that came out in the current year. But yeah, I think that's it.
Nice. Uh, yeah, that's all. Do you think I would like the Phil album or not?
I think you would like parts of it, but I think it might be a little bit too noisy at the front half for you. Listen to
Okay.
the Fish song though.
Okay.
That's a magical song.
Okay, I'll listen to the Fish song.
One of the best things I've ever heard.
Wow. Okay, well, I'll check it out. I listened to some new albums.
Ooh.
Thanks for asking. I listened to Only God Was Above Us by Vampire Weekend because it was recommended to me on Spotify. And I thought, well, I'm not usually a fan of hipster stuff, but I'll check it out this time.
I haven't
Eh,
listened to that yet, which is weird.
it was pretty good, honestly. I think I need to listen to it some more. I will say I've tried to listen. I think I listened to like half of Modern Vampires of the City, and I'm like, this is just not for me. But then I was like, you know what? I'll give them another shot because the new album is like very highly regarded. I know like a lot of people have been saying it's their album of the year, so I thought I'd check it out. And yeah, pretty g dang good. I just listened to it this morning, so I don't have like a whole lot of thoughts on like what tracks really stand out. I really like the intro, Ice Cream Piano. I think that's like a almost seems like it's political or something. I don't know. I was kind of like I was listening to it while I was doing something else. And I'm like, wait, this seems like it's like anti-war. Is this like Palestine? Like what's going on? I don't know. Oh no, it's probably Ukraine because they talk about Serbians and Romanians. So probably
The
not.
only song about Ukraine in 2024.
Yeah, I don't know. Um, Probably. I don't know. But yeah, pretty G dang good. Maybe we'll do it on the channel. Maybe not. I don't care. The
I mean, I'd be down.
Yeah, I might add it to my list. I think it'd be pretty good. The other album that I listened to is the L'Imperatrice's Pulsar. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably not.
It's French. It's fine.
It's French. I really like their EP Odyssey. That came out in 2015. It's French electro, I guess just electronic music. It kind of gives me Daft Punk vibes, although more overtly French. But
Impossible.
I know. Well, they don't usually sing in French in Daft Punk. The one album I've heard and a couple songs. They don't sing in French in Digital Love.
I
So,
suppose.
yeah. But this album is pretty dang good. I think I tried to listen to Taco Subo from 2021 and I couldn't really get into it, but this album was pretty dang good. Plus, it had the feature from Maggie Rogers on Anyway. It was pretty dang epic. Yeah, it feels like more of a continuation of Odyssey, even though Odyssey's like Yeah, it's only 6 tracks, and one's an intro and one's an outro. I don't know. I really like it. I think I saw it was on like album of the year. It was pretty highly rated on there. So I decided to check it out, and it's pretty dang good. I'll add that one to my wheel. I think Odyssey might be on short albums or
I think so.
EPs.
One of them is.
So yeah, we'll get to it. Pretty dang good. If you like some dancey, funky electronic music, check it out now.
I know I do.
I do too.
Oh, I forgot to say, rest in peace, Quincy Jones.
Oh, frick. Yeah, I
Lost a
saw
real
that.
one.
Yeah, Quincy Jones is
One of the
awesome.
best to ever do it.
Yeah. My favorite thing that Quincy Jones ever did was Don FM. That one song where he talks about his evil stepmother.
Real.
And producing stuff for like Bill Withers and Michael Jackson. That's that's a
That's
runner
small
up.
stuff compared to the Dawn FM feature.
Yes, Don FM, the best. The best song on that album actually is the Quincy Jones. It's the Facebook story of Don FM,
It really is.
and Facebook story is the best song on Blonde. I think we can all agree.
True. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, rest in peace, Quincy Jones. Very, very good. One of the most influential producers of all time, I'd say.
Of all time.
Yeah, yeah. Did he produce? He did stuff for like Rick James too, right?
He did stuff for like everybody.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Beatles, Michael Jackson, Stevie,
Yeah,
Diana, Ella Fitzgerald. Like,
yeah,
I think
that's true.
all of these people.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't. Well, I knew the big ones, but yeah, I guess he more influential than I thought. So, yeah. Rest in peace, Quincy Jones. Very nice guy. Hope his step.
Doesn't feel bad saying that because it's like 91, so it's not like it's a tragic
No,
loss.
no. He lived a good
He
life.
had a good life.
Yeah. And everything I've heard about him has been positive. He just seems like a genuinely nice guy. So, good on you, Quincy Jones. Hopefully, stuff doesn't come out about you in 2 years' time that you were a sex maniac or whatever. But right now, you're kosher with me. So, thank you, Quincy.
Very cool.
Very cool. Did anyone else die we need to shout out?
I don't think so. I think we're
Okay.
good this week.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I really don't like talking about dead people.
Young Thug's out of prison, so
Oh.
+1. Not like he was dead, but like
Yeah.
coming back into the light rather than out, I guess.
It's like that meme of people born on the same day that someone dies.
Welcome back, Quincy Jones.
Yeah. Young Thug reminds me a lot of Quincy Jones.
They're
Say
both
that.
incredibly influential in their time.
Is Young Thug that influential? But isn't he he's kind of doing the Future thing?
Kind of. I don't know. Young Thug's in his own lane.
Yeah. I don't know. They just kind of have similar voices in my eyes. They're both kind of doing the.
Yeah, whenever he does his low voice, it's weird.
I don't know. I'm not a judge on Young Thug. I've listened to the one album that has the fun guy on it.
Yeah. That one's pretty decent.
It's all right.
The cover's trippy.
It's a good cover. It's a good cover. Thank you,
One of my
Young
favorite
Thug.
clips is when Young Thug displays his love for fun.
Yes, that's my favorite too. Do you think that Young Thug is going to get his revenge on Lil Durk? I think that's the question.
Well, he can't do anything bad, or he goes back to prison. So,
well,
hopefully not.
Okay,
Keep your nose clean.
that's right. Is he on parole?
Yeah, for like 15 years.
What?
Yeah.
The heck? How is he gonna get walk?
I don't know.
This is so sad.
Maybe he can get some weird legalized version.
Legal? Is lean illegal? It's just like cough syrup and Sprite, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
Or NyQuil or whatever.
Whatever's in it. I don't. Yeah.
Whatever Lil Pump spent a bunch of money on.
Mm-hmm.
what is it? My lean costs more than your mama rent or something. Isn't that
Yes,
a
that's the
line?
line. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I
They
don't
should
think
do
that's
lean with
illegal.
Sprite cranberry.
Ooh, that'd be good. That would be good. I've never had
Cranberry
lean.
spiced lean. That's probably a good thing.
They should like package it up and sell it. They should like do what they did with weed and just like have lean
They actually have
dispensaries.
THC lean, which is like
Oh,
ridiculous.
that sounds terrible for you
I don't know
actually.
who's in the market for that, but if you
That
want to kill yourself,
that's just like if you just want to fall asleep. If
yeah,
you if you have like the worst case of sleep apnea ever, you take lean and weed.
it's just like I don't need a weed drink. I don't need weed lean.
No.
Like, what is wrong with you people?
What, you don't have weed drinks?
I mean, every once in a while, but it's like when I'm gonna. Actually, they sell them at concerts now here, which is weird.
Oh, that's
Which is
interesting.
it's nice. I'll take the drink. The drink is fine. But like all these weird forms they're doing, it's like, who who are you marketing to?
I don't know. I that's the biggest shock. Now that I'm a Minnesotan, as I'm like, I went to like a breakfast place and you can get THC
Hmm.
infused coffee and tea.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
who's starting off their day? This is like wake and bake, but like you're outside. Why would you get stoned at a breakfast restaurant?
Some people can do it. I can't.
I don't understand. I don't get it.
It's weird because it's not fully legal here, but like they still sell
Hmm.
THC drinks.
That is interesting. There must be some sort of loophole. I think there was
Well, it's
some like that in
THCA,
Iowa.
so it's not like
Oh,
real,
it's not real stuff.
but it is.
Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway,
Anyways, yeah, I think
either
that's.
Hitler 1 or Hitler 2 will probably give us legalized weed. So,
Thank you, Hitler too. Which one is which?
whatever you prefer.
Okay.
I don't know if there's too much of a difference.
Yeah, I'm like I don't know. I don't know. I don't. We a little peek behind the curtain. We had a peek behind the curtain last time where we recorded it
That's
on
true.
Halloween. We recorded this episode on Election Day.
We keep doing it on important dates.
So, as of right now, we don't know who the next president is. I have to assume that Joe Biden will still win.
I hope so. I'm still
I
riding with Biden.
I have to imagine that everyone just wrote him in.
He made the
Uh,
valiant sacrifice of stepping down for us, so I think we should lift him up by voting for him.
yeah, it's like that old saying where it's like the person who should be in power is the one that doesn't want it.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
He hasn't done anything, so what's the worst can
no.
happen?
Yeah, I actually wrote in Joe Biden, and then there wasn't a spot to write in vice president, but I just like kind of wrote it on the side, and I wrote
Mhm.
RFK as the
Or
vice
Donald
president.
Trump.
Well, no, well that would be good too, because then they're kind of like a dynamic duo.
They are a dynamic duo. Like the excitement went away as soon as he went away. Like
Absolutely.
those two are so cute together.
There was a certain energy you could tell that like I don't know, it was not reciprocated, but Trump had this certain aura. He was like gunning for
Yeah.
Biden, and then as
Hmm.
soon as Biden dropped out, he was just like he kind of shrunk down, and it was so
I think they
sad.
genuinely enjoyed each other.
I think
As
so
like
too.
two elderly men kind of doing this thing.
It's
Like
like
I want the face of my dying empire to be those two. I think it
exactly,
fits.
yeah. It's like
I don't need this shell of a politician acting like a progressive to be like that person. That's not real.
right, yeah. Kamala and Trump, there's no chemistry, but
No,
Biden and Trump, there's plenty of chemistry.
exactly.
Yes. It's like Biden and Trump are like what Magneto and Professor X in the X-Men movies where
Yeah.
they're like playing
Spy
chess.
versus spy.
They're like spy versus spy. They're trying to kill each other, but they're secretly buddies. They're Tom and Jerry.
Exactly. Tom and Jerry, the
Tom
classic.
and Jerry. Is Trump Tom? Trump has to be
Um,
Tom, and
I would
then
think so.
Biden is Jerry.
Yeah.
Uh,
Because Biden's got the wisecracks sometimes.
does he?
No, not really.
Does Jerry have the wisecracks?
No.
But there's something there.
There's something.
There's something there. Oh boy. Well, do you have any predictions for the
Um,
upcoming election?
I think it could go either way, and I don't really think it matters who wins. So
Interesting.
I think we've reached so far to the right that like our Democratic candidate is like a Republican. So
Pretty much.
yeah, we've lost all. We're so far gone.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
I don't know if I really care at this point.
So this is not a 2020 situation where you're going to be watching the map with faded breath.
I mean, I'll watch it just because like it's the fun spectacle that everybody gets to play into, but like it's also deeply depressing.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That is true. That is true. It's yeah, it's a little sad looking at the map right now. But that's fine.
It's early.
It's early.
I think the 2020 election has warped everybody's brains when it comes to like electoral maps.
That's true. That's true. Well, that just took forever. I hated that.
It took like 4 days.
It was 4 days. Those are the worst 4 days of my life. Just
Yeah,
constantly looking
not
at the
great.
map. Because I just love Joe Biden. That's really what it comes down to. I just
It's
love the
true.
guy.
I miss him.
I just
I
love
know
the
he's in
guy.
office right now, but it doesn't seem like
No, he hasn't. I
he
don't
hasn't
know.
said anything.
Hasn't said anything. Hasn't made any
I think
public appearances.
he walked out and said he was sorry for the Native American genocide the same day Israel bombed Iran. So
Wait,
it was
Joe.
just a cover up.
Why did Joe Biden apologize for that? He
I
didn't
don't
do
know.
it.
I'm personally sorry.
I'm sorry that my great great grandfather Andrew Jackson did some terrible things to you guys. My bad. I take responsibility. Did he do some reparations? Or was it just
I don't
I'm
even think so. I think
sorry?
he's just like, I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Please do not look anywhere else about anything related to this potential, like, crossover event between two genocides. Don't look at it.
Yeah. That is interesting. That
They do that every single time. Like, Israel only bombs people on, like, the Super Bowl or, like, certain holidays because the media is elsewhere.
was is Joe Biden apologizing for the Native American genocide a holiday?
No, but it's an event.
I
They're like, quick, they're going to do something crazy. Get Joe Biden out there and say something.
can't say anything. Literally anything. Uh I'm sorry
Ugh.
for handing out smallpox blankets. It's my bad. Like
I
why,
will say
why
I live in
him?
a like liberal safe haven now compared to like 2020 where I lived in a very conservative area.
Ah.
Um, it's like I hate seeing liberals be so happy to vote for this person. It rubs me such the wrong way.
Yeah.
It's like everybody's like vote to save women, and like she's not gonna help you.
No, not really. I think it's really just like we know what the other guy's gonna do, and it's bad.
Yeah,
Don't like
we
it.
survived 4 years. We could do it again.
We did, but at this time he has nothing to lose, I think.
True.
A
He's gonna
second
die.
second term is way more dangerous than a first term in general.
True.
Um, so I don't know. It's a little bit scary.
It's a lose-lose situation.
It is. It is.
There's no real winner here.
Yeah. I will say, I just said I moved to Minneapolis. It's a very, very liberal left place. And I'm back to being a mailman. I was delivering to people in I'll say it, a wealthier part of town. And there was this dude that walked up to me wearing all camo and then a
Of course.
camo Trump MAGA hat with the orange
Mhm.
type. Um,
Oh, really?
yes, yeah, one of
That's
those.
weird because the Harris hat is the same thing.
I I don't know. I guess I don't know
It's
what happened.
poetic in a way.
Yeah, they're I don't know which one copied which one, but that's what I saw. And he asked me, "Are you a Trump guy?" But I'm deaf. I didn't hear him.
Yeah.
I didn't hear him. I thought, for some reason, I thought he said, "Are you the truck guy?" And I'm like, "I'm in the truck." Yeah. And he was like, "Oh, okay, sweet." And so then he handed me a MAGA hat. And in the MAGA hat was like 5 apples. And he was like, "I'm
It's an
picking,
assassination attempt.
I guess so." He was like, I've been picking apples from my apple tree. And I thought, hey, you know what? I'll give you apples and I'll give it to you in a Trump hat. Don't forget to vote. And I'm like, oh, okay, nice. And then he was like, yeah, my apple tree is really weird. It used to be a crab apple tree, and now it's a full apple tree. I'm like, how does that how does that even happen? Can a tree just change species like that? Is that how that works?
You
But
just believed hard enough.
I guess. So then he handed me the hat apples. I guess for context, I'm allergic to apples,
Yes.
and I don't like Trump. So really,
Mhm.
the guy he handed me just a problem.
Says, what do I do with this?
Like, okay, so you've just given me a chore. I need to find someone to give these apples to, and find something to do with the Trump hat. I thought well, it could be fun, not fun, but like I thought about, well, I have like a newspaper thing from January 6th. I just have like the newspaper from that day. Wouldn't it be nice to have like a Trump hat? But I'm like, no, actually, no, I don't want to have to explain it. If
Be an
someone finds
interesting
it,
piece of memorabilia.
yeah. But then I was thinking, and I don't really like making like the comparisons like this, but I'm like, there's people that have like Nazi memorabilia, and then they just have
Yeah,
to explain like, oh, no, 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 I'm just fascinated with the time period. And it's like, I don't want to have that conversation with people if they find my
that's
Trump
true.
hat. So I just threw it away. And then the apples are in my fridge. So
But I'm not touching them.
I'm not going to eat them. Um, I'm going to give them to a friend of mine on a couple days from now. So hopefully they're still good. I got them 3 days ago. Oh, and the guy is like, these are the freshest apples that you're ever gonna eat because I never sprayed them with anything. So I might be giving my friend like bug infested apples, and I don't know. So I'll have to let her know to check. But
Great.
that's my little anecdote, you know.
Yeah. I think overall, Trump wins. Liberals are going to become so-called revolutionaries and cry for
Mm,
4 years, and things are going to be awful. And if Harris wins, all those liberals are not going to do anything and disconnect from politics,
yeah,
and we'll shift further to the right still, even though there's
yeah,
a Democrat in office. So it's going to be horrible either way. 2025 Project 2025 stuff will be implemented no matter
yeah.
who gets in. There's still
That's
going to be a
true.
genocide going on. We'll probably have a war. We'll still probably deploy troops and go to war. So
Yeah, that's what I like. I like war.
yeah,
That's
I mean,
something.
the U.S. runs on war. It's our
Exactly.
biggest our biggest export.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, we don't make stuff here anymore. Got to remember
No,
that.
we've offshored all of those
Yes, yes.
through a elaborate system of rigging countries' governments so we get lower prices on labor and stuff.
Exactly right.
And then we can complain about that all the jobs are in China, and then use that as a campaign message.
Isn't it funny how stuff works out like that?
That's politics.
I love politics. I've been following this election very closely, and
Been on the ground.
on the ground. I went to the RNC, the DNC, and the Run DMC, and
Madison Square Garden
and
rally.
MSG, and CCG, MSNBC,
CNN,
CNN.
MSNBC, Truth
I've,
Social.
I've been everywhere. Really gotten to the bottom of the issue. And the issue as I
Everybody
see
tells me
the issue as I see it is that everybody's the same.
this
So
sure is an election.
this is an election. Girl boss.
Hmm.
And Tim Walz, he seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, you at least have the benefit of having a cool governor if he loses.
Oh, that's true.
Although I
That
believe
is
his
true.
replacement would be the first Native American governor. So
Ooh.
I don't know if that's like a Elizabeth Warren Native American, aka not one, or if it's like an actual one. But
I don't know. I didn't know that that was the plan.
I think that was his plan.
That would be pretty cool. I'm looking at getting a new license plate, and they have
Mm.
a Minnesota license plate with like, we need to find the Native American bodies license plate. And I'm like, I think I would feel weird
Yeah,
having
maybe
that.
they'll find it if they keep putting pipelines in. They seem to like to do that there. So
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, that's what they say.
I'm just so disgusted with this country, so I can't even make jokes.
I don't know what there's like what's there to be disgusted about. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's pretty fine.
I think that you know, everybody just needs to chill a little bit.
Everybody just get a Pepsi like Kendall Jenner did,
Yeah, or like Michael Jackson did.
or Michael Jackson. Yeah,
Yeah, speaking of Quincy Jones.
sing "We Are the World." Why don't you?
Yeah, speaking of Michael Jackson again. I like the 2014 one,
Yes,
the one that was for
I
Haiti.
I think the Imagine COVID version might be the best thing.
That's the best
That
celebrity
was the
for a
nail in the
cause.
coffin for that. Yeah,
That's true. Honestly, I can't see that anything like that happening again anytime
no,
soon. Unless like no, no, there's literally nothing. Unless like all the pop girlies were like, we're gonna do a song about abortion, and
Israel,
about no, none of them would do that.
bring the hostages home.
No, well, yeah, it would be for Israel. I thought you were like,
Yeah,
oh,
no, yeah, for Israel.
okay. I was like, no,
There's this
Taylor.
like fake boy band that popped up that's like a complete psyop. That's like a
Oh,
quote unquote Israeli Palestinian boy
oh,
band.
yeah, I saw that. It's Big Time
That's
Rush.
crazy. Yeah, Hasbro Big Time Rush.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Make sure to
Yeah.
vote.
No, it doesn't matter.
Make sure vote like your life depends on it.
It's too late.
I've been voting all day.
What they
I'm
need
writing
to
one in as we speak.
oh, what they need to do is they need to have it be a website.
That's
That's
true.
what I'd like.
Vote.com.
Yeah. Well, they already have vote.gov. They already have
That's
the
true.
domain. That's half the
Mhm.
battle. Now you just program it to work
There
as a
should be like
voting tool.
a voting simulator, like one of those like power wash simulator games, but it's just a vote simulator where you just get to vote all the time. So then like young
Oh,
people will really be so excited to vote when
that's
they
true.
turn 18.
That's true.
I should work for the CIA. These are great.
Is it?
I think
you,
it would work.
you get to learn how to commit election fraud.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
And
idea.
there hasn't really like a game since like that one where like you're allowed to like save Trump from getting shot.
Well, that's a good game.
It's a good one.
The best political games are made in the Unity engine. I've always said
That's true. Zero budget.
that. Oh, yeah. Well, that's all I have to say, I think. Unless
Me
you
too.
do you have anything enlightening to share to the youth?
I'm not in a very enlightened space right now.
Mm.
My room is quite dark.
Oh, oh, just sitting in the dark?
Well, I have some lights on, but daylight savings time.
Oh, I see.
It's a little dark. Maybe like someone should run on abolishing daylight savings time.
That's what I'd like.
Like we don't need the farmer's almanac from 100 years ago to mandate our clocks.
Okay, I said that
Seems a
I'm.
little bit too communist for me.
I s- I said that I was done talking, but can we talk about how farmers have way too much power in this country?
They do.
Why
Like
the
I
hell?
like my entire political leaning is based on farmers owning everything, but like farmers are way too entitled in this country.
Why the hell have we bent our entire political and social everything as like, well, we have to take into account the farmers. We have to take into account the hicks that live in the boonies.
Yeah.
Their
All
voice
power
should
to the
matter.
peasants, but not the current way it is.
No, it's just like we need to take power away from, the people that live in cities because I don't know. And we need to give it to people who live nowhere.
The
This
countryside surrounds the city, someone once said.
I I don't care. I don't understand. I don't understand. It's just a job.
It's true.
What is it with conservatives and thinking that jobs equals should mean more power? Whether you're a cop or a farmer, it's just like those are the two best jobs. That's like the highest social class in terms of conservatives is cops and farmers.
Yeah, that's true. They also get the most things from politicians.
Farmers or cops?
Both.
Oh. What do farmers get from politicians?
Uh, like tariffs and crap.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true.
They get billed out,
They should bill
which you
me
kind of
out.
have to. Like if we don't make anything here. Like if the farms die, we're screwed.
Oh, that's true. You know, maybe that would fly in like New Jersey, because doesn't like New Jersey produce 1/3 of the world's eggplants?
That's crazy.
That makes sense.
Probably because all the Italians.
Oh,
I'm
maybe.
Italian. I can say that.
Well, I mean, eggplant, isn't that an Italian like
Yeah.
vegetable? So they probably brought it over. That's not a stretch.
No,
It's not racist.
the Sopranos, but instead of being in the mafia, they're just eggplant farmers.
Eggplant farmers. I'd like that. They should make that a new spinoff. They're always
I'd be
talking about like, oh, a Sopranos spinoff show, a Sopranos spinoff movie. Have it be eggplant farmer. Uncle Junior is an eggplant farmer before he was a mafioso.
True.
And he's played by Willem Dafoe. Someone who's not Italian.
Perfect.
That's the main idea, is that they're not Italian.
I want Lester Nygaard to make a starring appearance.
Yeah, that's what I want. Just some British guy to play to play Uncle Junior. That's awesome. Okay, bye bye.